The Draugr Plague, The Hollow Farm. Season 1, Episode 11. The auroral road did not hold its shape after the barren islet. It looked like a path. A green warning opened across the northern dark. From the boats it became less merciful. It slid behind cloud and ice mist. It broke across the black water in torn strips. Ulfric kept the prow of the first boat angled north by the memory of it, not by trust. He had learned the difference too late to let his people forget it now. The children slept under wet cloaks. Their breath made little pale ghosts against wool and hide. Freya sat near the middle bench with one arm around a boy who was not hers and the other hand on her axe. Her face held the blank patience of someone who had spent all her mercy and was standing guard over its ashes. Astrid sat before the mast stump, head tilted to the wind, listening beyond oar creak and wave slap. Leif held one of the carved covenant oars across his knees whenever he was not rowing, as if the law cut into its shaft might fall silent if his hand left it. No one sang. The drums from the empty sea had stopped. Their absence was not peace. It was only another kind of listening. Near dawn the fog thinned, and land rose where no one expected land to be. A low shore, black with weed. Beyond it, white fields sloped upward toward a hollow between two ridges. Smoke did not rise there. No dog barked. No human voice answered the first call. Then Leif saw the roof. A farmstead crouched in the hollow, half buried in snow, its turf roof sagging under old frost. A byre leaned against one side of the hall. A smoke hole gaped dark. Fences lay broken around a yard, drifted smooth by wind. There were no bodies in sight. Ulfric ordered the boats in slowly. No one rushed, though hunger reached ahead of them faster than any oar. The keel rasped over shingle. Men and women climbed out stiff-legged, helping children down, dragging rope, packs, spear shafts, and the little salt they had left. "Hold at the shore," Ulfric said. A groan passed through them. The farm was near enough to smell. Not warm smoke, not bread, but old hay, dung, timber, and the faint, sour, sweet breath of animals. After days of salt water and corpse ash, even rot smelled like shelter. Soren, who had bound a cracked rib with sailcloth, looked toward the farm with red eyes. If the dead had taken it, they would have broken it. If the living had kept it, Ulfric said, they would have answered. He sent Freya and 2 spear-bearers to circle the yard. He sent another pair to the byre. He kept the children and the weakest near the boats until every door had been opened from the side and every shadow had been given time to move. Nothing moved. In the byre, a thin brown cow stood trembling in a stall, more bone than animal, but alive. A second animal lay dead under frozen straw, already stiff, its hide unmarked. The living cow lowed when the door opened, a small broken sound that undid the children more than any promise could have. "A cow," a girl whispered. No one laughed yet. They had forgotten how to begin. The dairy room held sealed crocks under frost. Most had soured, but 2 were still good enough after thawing at the hearthstones. The milk came out thick, pale, and edged with ice. It smelled of grass remembered by an animal that had survived longer than its owners. Ulfric stood in the hall while the first fire took. He allowed only a small flame, fed from broken stool legs and dry moss found under the eaves. Fire could warm, fire could burn flesh, fire could answer one body and leave the debt in the air. Astrid's confession from the islet had followed them like another passenger. "Salt at the doors," Ulfric said. "We have almost none," a woman answered. "Enough to mark witness, not enough to save us." "No," Ulfric said, "not enough to save us." The honesty made some look away. Others obeyed because they had learned that obedience to a hard truth lasted longer than obedience to comfort. Leif scratched the farm's name into driftwood, then stopped because he did not know it. He had names for dead men, boats, oaths, and storms that spoke with borrowed mouths. He did not have a name for a house that offered itself without greeting. "Leave it blank," Astrid said from near the central posts. Leif turned. "You heard my knife. I heard the place refuse to answer." He slid the knife away. They found barley in a chest, hard cheese in waxed cloth, turnips buried in sand, and smoked fish high enough that rats had not reached it. None of it was plenty. To starving people, it looked like a feast. The children watched every portion pass from hand to hand, expecting some elder to say no, some law to take it away, some dead thing to claim it first. Ulfric divided the food before anyone ate. He made Leif witness the count. He made Soren stand by the door with a spear, though Soren's face tightened with pain. He gave Astrid the first word over the hearth, not a blessing, but a warning. "This house is not yet ours," she said. "Eat as guests, sleep as guests, take nothing hidden, speak no promise to the walls." A boy with cracked lips stared at the milk crock. "Can guests drink?" For the first time since the islet, something like a smile touched Astrid's mouth. "Guests can drink when law has poured." Ulfric dipped the first cup himself. He touched its rim to the nearest salt mark, then handed it to the youngest child, a little girl who had not spoken since the frozen hands gripped the keel days before. She held the cup with both hands. Her eyes widened at the warmth. A white line of milk clung above her lip. She laughed. The sound was so small it should not have filled the hall. Yet it did. It struck beams dark with old smoke. It moved among wet cloaks and shaking hands. It found other children before the adults could stop it. A boy laughed because the girl laughed. Another laughed because milk spilled down his chin. Soon 3 children were laughing over thawed milk, as if the world had briefly forgotten to be cruel. The adults did not know what to do with the sound. Some wept. Some turned their backs, ashamed of wanting to laugh with them. Freya lowered her head until her hair hid her face. Leif pressed his thumb hard against the carved oar, feeling the cut lines bite into skin. Ulfric watched the door. That was his cruelty and his mercy. He let the laughter live, but he did not join it. He counted shadows behind hanging hides. He listened for boards that took weight when no living foot crossed them. He marked every cup, every knife, every hand that lingered near chests and wall pegs. "Eat," Freya said quietly to him, "when the last door is opened." "All doors have been opened." "No," Ulfric said. "Only the doors we can see." Leif heard him and wrote the line on the driftwood after all. He did not name the farm. He named the law of it. Only the doors we can see. Outside, the aurora faded from the morning sky. The northern road left no track on snow, no sign on water, no proof that it had ever pointed here. The hollow farm stood silent around them, offering milk, beds, walls, and the terrible kindness of being real. For one fragile hour, spirits lifted. Ulfric let them lift. Then he ordered a second search. The second search began with ordinary things. That was why it was dangerous. A house that showed fangs invited caution. A house that gave barley, milk, and dry bedding asked people to forgive it before it had confessed. Ulfric understood that shape of temptation. He had carried cursed treasure home once under banners and praise. He had seen how quickly want made a warning look like insult. He divided the searchers by need and strength. Freya checked roof beams and loft spaces. Soren and the older boys opened storage pits with spear tips. Astrid walked the hall by touch. letting her burnt eyes face each post in turn. Leaf was told to record what they found and what they moved, because law without witness became rumor by nightfall. At first the record was simple. 1 iron kettle cracked at the lip. 3 wool blankets, damp but usable. 2 knives, bone-handled. A child's shoe under the sleeping bench. No body, no blood trail, no grave mound in the yard fresh enough to explain the silence. Leaf wrote slowly. He had not slept enough. The names from the storm still moved behind his teeth, trying to become speech. Every mark he cut into the scrap felt too permanent and not permanent enough. A boy named Kari followed him, carrying a lamp in both hands. Kari had laughed at the milk and now seemed frightened of having done so. "Will you write that we found food?" the boy asked. "Yes." "Will that make it stay?" Leaf looked down at him. "No." Kari's mouth tightened. "But it will make us answer for how we used it," Leaf said. The boy thought about this. "That is worse. Most true things are." They searched the wall behind the high seat. A strip of hide hung there, stiff with cold, painted with no image anyone could read. Ulfric ordered it taken down. Behind it the beam had been cut, gouged and darkened around iron nails. At first Leaf thought it was a charm board. Then he saw the rows. Names. Not prayer names, not kin names, debt names. The wood was not a loose tablet. It had been nailed straight into the main beam, driven so deep the iron heads had sunk below the grain. Someone had wanted the record to remain when hands failed, tongues lied, and children asked who owed whom. Leaf lifted the lamp. The marks were cramped and layered. Some had been cut by a patient hand, some by a shaking one. Beside each name were strokes, circles, small hooked signs, and short phrases. Aud for seed, aud for fish, aud for winter milk, aud for burial silver, ode for bride, price returned, ode for ore repair, ode for blood fine. A final line had been carved harder than the others. The knife had bitten so deep that splinters curled from the beam like old scabs. Paid below. Leaf did not read that aloud. Ulfric came to his shoulder. "What is it?" "A ledger. Of stores. Of debts." The word moved through the nearest listeners like cold under a door. Debt was not coin only. Debt was food promised, labor owed, blood unpaid, burial neglected, honor measured until it strangled the living. Debt could be law. Debt could be memory. Debt could become a rope around the dead. Ulfric's gaze hardened. "Take it down." Leaf touched one nail and withdrew his hand. "It is not hung, it is nailed into the house." Then cut it free. Astrid, from the central aisle, said, "Do not cut the beam yet." Everyone stilled. She had not raised her voice. She did not need to. Since the eyelet, since the storm had spoken with the names Leaf kept, people listened faster when Astrid warned them. They also feared resenting her for being right. Ulfric turned. "Why?" "Because the house remembers through it." Soren spat into the ash pit. "Houses do not remember." Leaf looked at the rows of debt names. "People make them." Astrid moved closer. Her fingers hovered over the carved beam without touching it. This was not written to settle accounts. This was written so no account could be denied. Kari's lamp shook. Leaf took it from him before oil spilled. He wanted to read all of it. He wanted to refuse. The ledger pulled at the part of him that believed naming was rescue. It also frightened the part that had heard named dead speak in storm wind. One name near the bottom had been cut again and again until it was almost a wound. Ragnar, Ragnar, Ragnar. Beside it, a phrase repeated in cramped strokes. Milk withheld. Milk owed, milk below. Leaf thought of the children laughing. His stomach turned. Whoever lived here kept score until score became God, he said. Ulfric's jaw shifted. Do not give it godhood. I am not. You are looking at it like scripture. Leaf almost answered sharply. Then he saw Ulfric's hand. The chieftain had closed it around nothing, thumb grinding against the scar where rope had burned him during the flight from the burning longhouse. Ulfric was not angry at Leaf alone. He was angry at any record that could outlive mercy. Leaf lowered his eyes. I am looking at it like a trap. That answer eased nothing, but it avoided breaking something. Freya climbed down from the loft with dust in her hair. No hidden sleepers above, no bones. Her gaze found the beam. What did you find? Names, Ulfric said. Freya's face closed. Names had become too heavy among them. Names on pyres. Names in wind. Names carved into oars. Names spoken by dead mouths that were not speaking. She stepped nearer but did not touch the beam. Can it call them? She asked. Astrid shook her head once. Do not ask what it can do as if it were a weapon in a hand. Ask what people did around it. Leaf listened. That was Astrid's way when she refused to explain what she only partly knew. Not ignorance, not certainty. A boundary. Ulfric pointed to the floor below the beam. Lift those boards. Two men knelt. Their knife tips slid between planks. The first board resisted. The second gave with a wet groan, revealing packed earth and old mouse droppings, nothing more. Relief passed too quickly. Again, Ulfric said. They lifted 3 more boards. No gold, no bones, no hidden chest. Soren laughed once harshly. A poor man's curse, then. Scratches and shame. Leaf looked at the words paid below. Not poor, he said. Ulfric heard. What did you say? Leaf could have lied by silence. Instead, he lifted the lamp to the final line and read only what was necessary. Paid below. No one spoke for a while. The farm creaked around them. Wind dragged itself over the roof. Somewhere in the byre, the cow shifted and lowed again, and the children in the next room laughed softly over another cup of milk. The sound crossed into the hall, innocent and unbearable. Ulfric looked from the ledger to the floor, then to the people gathered too close. No one sleeps in this hall until we know what below means. A woman protested at once. The children need beds. They need mourning more. We all need mourning. Yes, Ulfric said, so we earn it awake. Leaf wrote the ledger into his record. He did not copy every name. Not yet. He marked its presence, its nailheads, its warning line, and the order not to sleep. Then he added a sentence he hoped no one would ask him to read aloud. A record can be a grave if no one lets it end. They found the cellar door by listening to Astrid breathe. At first she stood in the center of the hall with her head bowed, one hand on the deck beam and the other open toward the floor. The searchers waited in rough half-circle. No one mocked her now. Mockery required a kind of safety they no longer owned. The house made ordinary sounds around them. Thaw water fell from the roof edge. Wind pressed smoke back through the hole. A child coughed in the side room, then was hushed. The cow in the byre tore hay with slow teeth. Beneath all that, Astrid heard something else, or felt it, or suffered it. Leaf could not tell which word was least false. Metal, she said. Soren lifted the iron kettle. Every farm has metal. Below. Ulfric's eyes moved to the planks. Where? Astrid walked without sight, bare fingers grazing air before her. She passed the lifted boards near the beam. She passed the hearthstones. She stopped beside a sleeping bench where children had been given blankets a short while before. The youngest girl still held her milk cup in both hands. "Move them," Ulfric said softly. The softness made the order worse. Freya gathered the children before anyone else touched them. The little girl began to cry because she thought the milk was being taken away. Freya knelt in front of her. "No one takes it," she said. "You carry it with you." The girl looked at Ulfric with the open accusation only children still dared.
"Are we bad guests?"
Ulfric had no answer ready. Leif watched him search for one and find only law.
"We are careful guests,"
Ulfric said. Kari muttered.
"Careful guests do not pull up floors."
"No," Ulfric said. "Hungry guests do." They moved the bench. Under it the planks were wider than the others, rubbed smooth where bedding had hidden them. Freya found a finger notch packed with soot. She hooked her knife into it and pulled. Nothing happened. Soren joined her. The board lifted with a long wooden sigh, as if the house had held that breath for a winter. Cold air came up. Not rot, not grave stink. Cold clean enough to be Rome. A ladder dropped into dark. The first rung glittered where frost had caught it. Ulfric took the lamp from Leif. "I go first," Freya said. "No, you need your hands free to command. I need my oath below before anyone's hunger." Freya's mouth tightened, but she stepped aside. Leif saw her hand close against her chest for one heartbeat, not over mail or wound, but over the hidden place where her own secret lay. Then the hand fell. No one else noticed. Ulfric climbed down. The lamp lowered with him, making the ladder throw long black ribs against the cellar wall. Halfway down he stopped. Leif knew before Ulfric spoke. Light had touched something below and returned changed. It was not the warm gold of hearth flame or the dull shine of tool iron. It was a small, hard glitter multiplied beyond need. "Leif," Ulfric said. The skald climbed after him. The cellar was larger than the hall above. It had been cut into frozen earth and lined with stone. Barrels stood along one wall. Some held grain gone sour. Others held nothing but mouse nests. Against the far wall lay chests. Not one chest. Not a farmer's savings tucked away for bride price or bad winter. Chests, jars, broken bowls, leather sacks, and heaps where containers had split and spilled. Coin covered the floor. Silver, bronze, and gold lay mixed with beads, clasps, rings, armbands, cut hack silver, and foreign pieces stamped with faces no one in the north would mourn. Some were black with age. Some looked newly bright. The lamp made the cellar glitter like a frozen creek under stars. The sound came next. Whispering. Not words. Metal settling, frost cracking, coin edges kissing one another when no foot had touched them. Yet the mind wanted speech so badly that it shaped the sound into asking. Leif stepped back until his shoulder hit the ladder. Ulfric did not move. His face had gone still, seeing not only the thing before him, but the thing behind it. His brother's burial gold, the first hoard, the village that had believed treasure could feed winter, the dead that rose with coins frozen into ribs. "Paid below," Leif said. Above them, Astrid called down, "Do not name it payment." Her voice seemed far away. Ulfric lifted the lamp higher. "How much?" "Too much for a farm." "How much for a starving clan?" Leif heard the trap in the question, not because Ulfric desired the coin, because every hungry mind above them would ask it, and law that could not face a human question would break at first resistance. "Enough to buy seed," Leif said. "Enough to buy boats. Enough to buy salt, rope, pitch, iron, cattle. Enough to make men swear this is providence." "And enough?" Ulfric asked. Leif looked at the glittering floor. enough to call the dead. They stood inside that answer. A coin rolled from the edge of a heap, though no one touched it. It turned in a small circle and settled against Ulfric's boot. He looked down. His hand flexed once near his axe, absurdly, as if an axe could answer metal. "Do not pick it up," Astrid said from above. I know. I said it for the ones listening." Leif looked up. Faces crowded the opening. Hunger stared down through every gap. Children, widows, wounded men, exhausted rowers, people whose houses had burned, whose kin had become ash, whose future had narrowed to one uncertain path across winter water. The cellar's light found their eyes and made desire look like fever. A woman named Birna whispered, "That could keep us alive." Freya answered before Ulfric could, "So could a knife at your enemy's throat. You do not sleep with it in your child's bed." Birna's face crumpled. "My child has no bed." No one answered that cleanly because no clean answer existed. Ulfric climbed back up, leaving Leif below a moment longer. The Skald did not want to remain with the coins. He also did not want to turn his back on them. The ledger had said paid below. The seller answered with wealth enough to make debt seem settled and curse seem hidden. He crouched and studied the nearest heap without touching. Among the coins lay small bone tags, each scratched with a mark. He recognized the shape from the beam, debt strokes, names reduced to tally wounds. Someone had dropped memory into gold until neither could be separated. Leif wanted to copy the marks. His fingers itched for knife and wood. Then one bone tag shifted. Not far, only a breath. Enough. He stood quickly and climbed out. In the hall, the children had stopped laughing. Astrid faced the opening as if staring into a well. The farm did not empty because it was poor. Ulfric set the lamp on the floor. The flame trembled, though no wind reached it. "What does it want?" Soren asked. Astrid's head turned toward him. "Want belongs to the living." "That is no answer." "It is the answer I have." Ulfric looked at the people around him. Relief had not vanished. It had changed clothing. Now it wore the shape of argument, need, calculation, and quiet shame. He spoke before the room could decide for itself. "No hand takes coin from below." Birna lifted her chin. "Then what do we do with it?" Ulfric looked toward the door, beyond the yard, beyond the shore where black sea breathed under grey light. "We give it to the salt water." The protest began before his words had fully ended. The first protest was not greed. That was why it cut so deeply. Birna did not lunge for the cellar. She did not clutch a coin to her breast or laugh like a saga miser. She stood with a child on her hip and milk drying white on the child's sleeve. "My husband is ash," she said. "My nets are gone. My house is gone. You tell me salt marks a door, but salt does not make shoes. You tell me fire frees flesh, but fire did not return him. If that gold can buy one goat for my son in some place that still trades, why must the sea eat it?" Others murmured agreement. Not all. Enough. Ulfric let them speak for a few breaths. He had learned that silencing need made it burrow. He had also learned that letting need crown itself was how curses entered by the front door. Soren said, "We do not even know the coin is cursed. The old hoard was cursed. This may be only stolen wealth." Leif looked at the debt beam. Only stolen wealth has never been only. A tired man near the hearth snapped, "Easy for the one who writes. Marks do not feed children." Leif accepted the blow because it was partly true. He had no sack of grain hidden in his verses. He had only witness, and witness often arrived after hunger had already made its bargain. Ulfric raised one hand. "Hear the law." The salt rite is for bodies, Soren said. The salt rite is for boundary, Ulfric answered. For witness, for confession before touch, for taking nothing hidden from the dead, for refusing to let want call itself innocence. Astrid stood beside the cellar mouth. It is not a cure. Ulfric nodded once. No. It is not a cure. It will not make the farm safe. It will not cleanse what happened here. It will not promise morning. But law is what we can still obey when promise fails. That quieted them more than threat would have. Then he gave the order. All gold, silver, trade rings, cut pieces, bone tags, and marked wealth from below will be carried to the sea before dusk. No one carries it alone. No one pockets so much as a broken clasp. Leaf records the carriers. Astrid witnesses the threshold. Freya searches hands at the yard gate, including mine. Freya's eyes move to him, including mine. The words mattered. Ulfric was not offering fairness as kindness. He was binding himself first so he could bind the others. The work began in anger. They had no proper sacks to spare, so they used cracked bowls, broken shields, strips of hide, and 2 empty grain tubs. Every load was counted in rough measure, not value. No one named worth aloud after Leaf asked them not to. Worth made the coins sound like future bread. Weight made them sound like burden. Ulfric descended first, filled the hide with gold and silver until the muscles in his neck stood out, then climbed up under its drag. At the top, Freya searched his sleeves, belt, boots, and palms while everyone watched. No one smiled. It was too necessary to be comic. Clean, she said, again at the yard. She searched him again at the door. After that, no one could claim insult when searched. Leaf stood by the threshold with driftwood and knife. He recorded names, loads, refusals, and oaths. He did not record the value. When a man cursed him for cutting too slowly, Leaf handed him the knife. Write your own name if mine offends you. The man stared at the blade, then looked away. Astrid spoke over each load as it crossed the salt line. Not prayer, not spell, a naming of limits, taken from below, witnessed above. Not kept in hunger, not hidden in grief. Again, taken from below, witnessed above, not kept in hunger, not hidden in grief. By the 4th load, children were repeating it under their breath. By the 7th, some adults hated the words because they worked. The path to the sea became a dark trench through snow. People stumbled under weight that could have bought warmth if the world were still a world where buying saved anyone. At the shore, Ulfric stood knee-deep in black water and hurled coin, clasps, tags, and rings into the waves until his shoulders shook. The sea accepted everything without gratitude. No monster rose. No light changed. No dead voice wailed. That absence hurt the doubters into fresh confidence. See? Soren said after the 3rd load. Nothing. Ulfric turned on him, breath smoking. If law only mattered when the sky tore open, we would have no law. Carry. Soren carried. Dusk thickened before the cellar floor began to show stone beneath the drifts. Hands numbed, tempers wore raw. A boy dropped a bowl and coins scattered across the yard. Several people froze. Kari, who had carried the lamp for Leaf, bent before anyone stopped him and began gathering them with his bare hands. His mother screamed his name. Kari flinched, clutching 3 coins. Ulfric crossed the yard fast. The boy looked up, terrified, not because he wanted to steal, but because everyone had looked at him as if he had already become dead. I dropped them, Kari said. I was helping. Ulfric knelt in the snow instead of standing over him. Open your hand. Kari obeyed. The coins lay on his palm, ordinary and terrible. Leaf, Ulfric said. Leaf came with the salt bowl. There was so little left that each grain felt like a decision taken from the future. Ulfric pinched a few grains and set them on the boy's palm around the coins. "Witness, not cure," he said. Kari nodded, crying without sound. "Now carry them to the water where I can see." The boy did. Ulfric walked beside him. No one spoke until the coins were gone. That should have strengthened the law. Instead, it revealed its cost. Near nightfall, when the last tub was said to be ready, Freya caught a woman slipping something into her boot. The yard went still. Freya seized her wrist. The woman was old, narrow, nearly blind from smoke and age. Her name was Halldis. She had lost 2 sons between the village and the fjord. Freya opened the boot and found a small silver ring. Halldis did not deny it. "It was my daughter's size." No one moved. Ulfric held out his hand. Halldis pressed the ring to her mouth. "Let me keep one thing." "You kept your sons' names," Ulfric said. "Names are air. Names are law. Law is cold."
Yes.
The old woman's face twisted.
Then be cold, Ulfric. Be cold enough for all of us.
He took the ring. Leif watched the chieftain's fingers close around it and saw what others might miss. Ulfric did not look triumphant. He looked diminished. The oath had done what oaths do when they are real. It had taken from the keeper first. Freya searched Halldis gently afterward, then searched herself at the yard gate, turning out sleeves, boots, belt, and hair braid before everyone. Her face stayed hard. Her hidden brooch remained hidden under cloth and armor, a secret weight no one named. Leif did not know it was there. Ulfric did not know. The law passed near it like a blind blade. When Ulfric threw Halldis's ring into the sea, the old woman made no sound. That was worse than weeping. The final loads went slower. Some resisted by arguing, some by delaying, some by staring too long at what they carried. A few resisted only in their hearts, which no search could empty. By full dark the cellar looked nearly bare, though Leif could not swear every coin was gone. No one could. The farm had too many cracks. Hunger had too many pockets. Ulfric ordered the cellar left open and guarded. "We sleep in watches," he said. A man laughed bitterly. After all that, still no sleep. Ulfric looked back at the hall, where the children had been promised beds and given fear instead. After all that, especially. They returned from the shore under a moon blurred by cloud. The sea behind them held their caste, off wealth without sign. The farm ahead held milk, blankets, hay, and a ledger nailed into its bones. Relief had not died. It had become something more dangerous. Relief denied a crown. Night made the hollow farm sound occupied. Snow slid from the roof in soft falls. The byre wall clicked as frost tightened in old joints. The cow breathed and shifted. Embers settled. People turned under borrowed blankets and tried not to hear one another's stomachs. Ulfric did not sleep. He sat with his back to the debt beam and his axe across his knees. The open cellar mouth lay before him, ringed with 3 thin salt marks and watched by 2 exhausted spear bearers who kept jerking awake. Freya guarded the outer door. Astrid sat near the hearth, head bowed, lips moving without sound. Leif sat opposite Ulfric with the Covenant oar beside him and driftwood record in his lap. "You should sleep," Leif said. "So should you. I am listening to the house." Ulfric's eyes did not leave the cellar. "And what does your house say?" Leif looked at the beam. The debt names vanished in shadow, then returned when embers breathed. "It says too many people believed owing and owning were the same as living. That is a skald's answer. It is the only kind I have left." For a while they listened together. Somewhere near the children, Holdis whispered names into her blanket. Not prayers. Sons, daughter, husband. Ulfric spoke so quietly, Leif almost missed it. When I took the ring, I hated the law. Leif did not write. Good. If you loved it there, I would fear you more. The chieftain's mouth tightened. You have learned cruelty. I have learned records. A soft scrape came from the far side of the hall. Both men turned. Kari stood beside the sleeping bench, one hand under his tunic. His mother slept behind him, or pretended to. The boy's eyes were open too wide. Ulfric rose. Kari. The boy began to cry at once. I did not steal. No one in the hall stayed asleep after that. Freya crossed from the door. Astrid lifted her head. Leif felt the old sick knowledge settle in him before the object appeared. Kari pulled a bone tag from under his tunic and held it out with both hands. I found it in the yard, he said, after the bowl fell. It stuck to my sleeve. I forgot. I did not mean to hide it. His mother made a sound as if struck. The tag was small, scratched with a debt mark. Not coin, not gold. Not wealth that could buy anything. Memory shaped into a token. Ulfric took it with a strip of cloth, not bare fingers. Why bring it now? Kari swallowed. It was warm. Astrid stood too quickly. Open the door. Freya obeyed, axe ready. No, Astrid said, the cellar. The spear. Bearers at the cellar mouth backed away. One of them whispered that he had heard nothing. The other crossed himself in an old habit from some southern captive faith, and then looked ashamed. Ulfric crouched by the opening. The salt marks still lay there, pale and thin. Below, darkness filled the ladder well. The lamp they had left on the third rung had gone out. A sound came from under the floor. Not the cellar. Under the floor. It began as the dry tick of settling wood. Then another answered. Then many. Around the hall, beneath sleeping benches, under hearthstones, below the places where children had laughed at milk, boards began to click as if fingernails were testing them from beneath. People rose in panic. Stay off the center, Ulfric shouted. Too late. A plank near the hearth jumped. A woman screamed. Freya dragged two children backward as a seam opened where no seam had been. Dirt breathed up, cold and glittering with frost. Something pale pressed below it, withdrew, pressed again. Leif saw Astrid's face change. Not surprise. Recognition without full knowledge. Not from the cellar, she said. From the owing. Soren seized a spear. That means nothing. It means enough to move. The first hand came through near the debt beam. The boards did not break like fresh wood. They split slowly, grain peeling apart around black nails. Fingers emerged between them, grey, swollen, rimed with white frost. They wore rings of tarnished metal embedded so deep the flesh had grown hard around them. The hand opened and closed on empty air, patient as hunger. Another hand thrust up beneath a sleeping bench. Then another near the dairy room. The floor answered itself across the hall, one reaching place after another. Greed, bound. No one needed Astrid to name them. The dead named themselves by what they clutched. Coins frozen into palms, silver wire wrapped through knuckles. Bone debt tags tied around wrists with rotten cord. Their bodies were still below, but their hands had found the living first. Ulfric grabbed Kari by the back of his tunic and shoved him toward Freya. Children to the yard. Freya took the first child under one arm and drove the butt of her axe into a reaching wrist with the other. Bone cracked. The hand kept grasping. Salt, someone shouted. We have little, another cried. Witness line at the door, Ulfric ordered. Not a wall, a line. Move. Leif snatched the Covenant oar and swung it across a widening split. The carved shaft struck a hand crawling upward through broken boards. The fingers closed around the oar. For one mad instant he felt the dead grip the lure itself. He pulled. It did not let go. Ulfric's axe came down, not clean enough to sever, hard enough to crush. The hand slid back, dragging splinters and a smear of black frost. "Do not lose that," Ulfric said. "I was not offering it." The hall lurched under them. That was how it felt, though the earth did not move. The truth moved. The farm had not held one cellar of coin beneath a safe floor. It had held debt under every board, under every bed, under every cup of milk. Huldis stood frozen near the beam, staring at the hands. One reached close to her foot. Around its smallest finger was no ring, only the groove where a ring had been. She whispered, "I gave it back." Ulfric heard and turned. "Huldis, move. I gave it back." The boards beneath her split. Leif lunged first. He caught her sleeve as both her feet dropped through. Hands closed around her boots, her skirts, her old thin legs. She screamed then, not a loud scream, but a tearing one. Ulfric seized Leif's belt before both went down. Freya drove through the crowd, knocking people aside, children crying behind her. Astrid flung the last of the salt bowl across the split. White grains scattered over dead hands and living cloth alike. The hands recoiled for a breath. Not gone, not defeated, recoiled. "Pull!" Ulfric roared. They pulled. Huldis came up with one boot missing and blood blackening her stocking. Beneath her, faces pressed toward the gap. Not whole faces. Foreheads, teeth, one eye filmed in ice, hair stiff with soil. Mouths moved around words that were not words. Coin clicked behind their teeth. The floor split wider. A beam cracked overhead. Snow sifted down from the roof. The cow in the byre bellowed, and the sound of it drove the children into fresh terror. Men hacked at hands. Women dragged bedding toward the door to make a path. Soren stabbed through the boards again and again until his spear lodged. He refused to release it. A hand climbed the shaft toward him. Leif struck the shaft with the oar and broke it free. "Go!" Ulfric shouted. But there was nowhere clean to go. The yard beyond the door was black and blowing. The boats lay beyond the yard, the sea beyond the boats, and the night between all of them. Inside, the floor opened in pieces. Outside, the hollow waited without a sound. Ulfric looked once toward the cellar mouth. The open hole was no longer the center of danger. It was only one mouth among many. Astrid gripped his arm. "The farm is rising around its dead." "Can it be burned?" Soren shouted. "Bodies can burn," Astrid said, voice shaking. "Debt remains." Leif heard Soren curse her. He heard others pray. He heard Freya shouting names so children would follow her voice. He heard Ulfric ordering the weak toward the door and the armed to hold the brakes. He heard the debt beam groan behind him. Then the main floor split from hearth to threshold. It did not crack all at once. It opened like a wound remembering the blade. Planks buckled upward. Nails screamed out of wood. The salt marks scattered. The sleeping benches tilted. Milk cups fell and shattered. From the black beneath, hands rose in rows. Not one dead man. Not one hidden corpse. Hands. Hands with coins fused to knuckles. Hands with rings bitten into flesh. Hands with bone tags tied tight. Hands reaching for boots, blankets, throats, oars, children, law, warmth, anything living above what had been paid below. Ulfric planted himself between the widening split and the children. Leif held the Covenant oar beside him. Freya dragged the youngest girl toward the door as the child screamed for the milk cup she had dropped. Astrid turned her blind face toward the floor, tears bright on her cheeks in the firelight. The hollow farm gave up pretending to be shelter. The floor tore open, and the hands reached through. Thank you for listening. This chapter ends here, but the story continues. Follow the series for new chapters, and when you are ready, explore the other worlds and storylines waiting beyond this one. If you enjoyed this episode, leaving a like or a comment helps more listeners find the story.